Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I am Deb Coviello, and I want to welcome you to an amazing event. It is our Quality Roundtable, where we are going to be talking about today what to do when you discover or are facing corruption. Oh my, it's a tough topic, but professionals out there, quality operations, wherever you're at, this is a tough conversation. And we felt so strongly that we wanted to get together a panel of experts to share our views and give you the tools that you might need for this. And I must say, just before we got this, is sponsored by the Drop In CEO. They are sponsoring this event today, and I do want to make some brief introductions. Again, I am Deb Coviello, co-host of this event. We are then followed by my co-host and wingman, Joseph Luellen, who is a quality manager, automation engineer, speaker, and coach, followed by Randy Hazel, who is a quality manager and director, followed by the amazing Doug Meyer, a Six Sigma Master Black Belt, as well as we are joined today by Dell Unsworth, who has an amazing amount of experience, over 30 years experience in automation in various companies. So with that, we are going to go a little bit more in depth, but I am so excited about the show, and I want to hand the mic to Joe Luellen. Joe?
How's everybody doing out there? I'm Joe Luellen. I've been in manufacturing quality pretty much my entire professional career. This is a passion project to bring people together that aren't afraid to speak the truth. So we had to call it Speaking Truth to Power. What I want to do is go around real quick and get everybody to introduce themselves. So Deb, since you're co-hosting, you're going to go last actually. But Randy, can you reintroduce yourself to the crowd out there?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Randy Hazel. I'm currently a quality manager at X-Tang in Ann Arbor, but I've got over 30 plus years in manufacturing quality, with about half that time at Chrysler and the other half at Tier 1 suppliers.
All right. And Doug, can you introduce yourself again?
Absolutely. My name is Doug Meyer, and I'm currently the Master Black Belt at the Ford Motor Company, Sharonville Transmission Plant in Sharonville, Ohio. I've been in the auto industry for going on 35 years now. A part of that was at Honda Motor Company in the early 80s, when the transplants were first brought from Japan to the United States. And the remaining portion of my career, where I'm at now, is with Ford Motor Company.
All right. And we have a newcomer who's watched us and followed us, and he decided he was going to jump on the panel. Dell, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Dell Unsworth. I've spent most of my career in automotive, building equipment and working with quality to make sure that they get the end product that they paid for. And now I've jumped the other side of the fence, and I follow what my heart believed in, recycling, and recycle lead acid batteries and deal with regulatory boards. So different quality.
Hey, very, very interesting. So, Deb, why don't you tell people about yourself? And then if there's somebody out there watching, tell them how they can be a part of this if they want to be a part in the future.
Yeah, so thank you. Deb Coviello. I am the Drop In CEO. I have formed my own business where I help companies drop in as their chief operations officer, chief quality officer, because of the experience I've had with crises and chaos, et cetera. But I have over 30 years experience in quality and operational excellence, making things better, faster, cheaper in electronics, and most recently in the flavor and fragrance industry. So I have seen a lot of experience, both good times and not so good times. So hopefully I can be a good panelist today and contribute to the conversation. Joe?
All right. So we are going to dive right in. I hope this one's going to be kind of exciting. It's going to be a round robin. The topic today, what to do when you discover or are facing corruption. Now, I can tell you right off the bat, if you are facing a tough situation or possibly corruption, get help, get advice, get your facts straight, and try to figure out what actions to take. And that is literally what we're going to talk about today. So I don't know who wants to go first, but let's do a short answer round robin. What advice do you have for somebody who has to stand up for corruption for the first time? Who wants to be the first person up.
I can go, Joe.
All right, Randy, let's hear it.
All right. So my short story is I was the quality manager at a manufacturing plant. We had an automated quality system that measured or that analyzed whether parts were good or bad, obviously. And if they did not meet the parameters of that machine, they got kicked out into a scrap aisle. I was walking through the plant one day. The scrap was very high in this organization because the machine wasn't being maintained. Anyway, it was kicking out a lot of parts for scrap. I was walking through the plant one day. This was in 2019. Hiring was very difficult. They had just hired somebody off the street, and back in the corner, this was a very large facility. Back in the corner of the facility, I noticed these guys doing some welding, and these were safety welds that they had been kicked out of in the automated quality machines for not meeting the parameters. And they had hired basically some John Doe off the street to manually correct those safety welds and turn scrap into good product. So I was like, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I was told just to walk away. You didn't see this, Randy, just walk away. I reported it to the plant manager. He said he would look into it. I talked to him later in the day. He had looked into it, and I was told the same thing. Randy, scrap here is very high. I'm turning scrap parts into good parts. This is the way we're going to do it. I talked to the vice president of quality. Basically, nothing was done. I resigned the next day because I was not going to take part in that. Granted, it takes, it all depends on everybody's life circumstances, on what their response is after nothing gets done. I was in a good position where I could just say, you know what, I'm not going to take part in this. And I just walked out. That's the end of my story.
Now, who wants to try to follow that?
I can go. Joe.
All right, Doug. So let's hear what you got.
So, the story that comes to mind for me is involved in a situation. Well, I wasn't involved in it. I actually had the luxury to understand the details of this issue, and after the fact, and then kind of think about what I would have done if I was in that situation, because it's always easy to say I would have done this or I would have done that, but then I think about the people that were involved, and it's not always easy. It's easy in hindsight, but not always easy when you're in the moment. And I'll explain that here in a bit. So there was a situation where a FEMA rule was modified to fit an outcome. And it ended up resulting in a major lawsuit for the company, as well as a major recall and a lot of unsatisfied customers. And the company's still dealing with the effects of that to this day. The warranty coverage was opened up from your typical 336 to 10 years, 100,000 miles per the lawsuit. So it cost the company a lot of money. So I guess the bottom line is, sometimes when there's corruption involved, it's because you expect a short-term gain, but a lot of times what ends up resulting is a long-term major cost to the company. But anyway, the details of this, the FEMA, the Failure Mode and Effects Analysis, is intended to, as you guys know, look at things up front and try to mitigate risk and put controls in place so that these things don't happen. Okay, so as part of the FEMA, you've got your severity rating, you've got your detection, and you got your occurrence ratings that all add up to a risk number that dictates the controls that you should have in place. It turns out that this particular product had an issue with it, a known issue that revealed itself during the launch, and the severity rating was changed from a 9 down to a 5 for this particular aspect, such that the product would meet the risk number that would allow us to produce it. Now, the reason this came to light is because the company is making other products where the severity rating was still at a 9 for the same issue, but it was only the one product where the severity rating was moved from a 9 to a 5. So that kind of opened the company up to an obvious discrepancy. So there were some emails that went around. Other employees were working on other products. They were reviewing FEMA from benchmark products, and they said, hey, in an email, why does this one product here, product A, have a severity rating of 5 for this particular failure mode when I'm required to keep it at a 9? And the employee that was on the project responded back, it's for political reasons. So now we've got an email. Now we've got this whole email chain that's documenting, number one, the discrepancy in the way we're handling the severity rating on FEMAs between products. And another email, a follow-up email that admits that it's it was done for political reasons. Customers started complaining. Other employees felt compelled to reveal this to the press. Lawyers came in. The emails were brought to the press, and it was a pretty nasty situation. Company essentially couldn't defend itself. So, and I guess for me, when I look back on that, it's easy to point fingers and say, well, shoot, if I was, I would have done what Randy would have done. I mean, look at Randy. Randy risked his job, and a lot of people in reality, it takes that's a lot of pressure, right? So if you're a young engineer entering a company, you've got some pressure to please the boss, make the program a success, and toe the line. So, for me, I just reflect back on that, even though I wasn't directly involved, and I'm thinking, wow, I could imagine the pressure, number one, that these people are under. And number two, dealing with a big company like this and people that outrank you, that's got to feel intimidating to stand up, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is it is hard. It's not easy to go and do the right thing. You're going to feel that pressure. But sometimes you just got to go through the discomfort, state your opinion. And in hindsight, if that was me, I think I would have probably asked to at least be pulled off the project. This isn't something that I think I could be effective on this project. I'd like to work on a different project. At bare minimum, I think that's probably the course of direction I would have taken there.
Doug, that was definitely probably not an easy story to share. And Randy, yours probably wasn't easy either. That's why this is such an important topic. And now, Dell, you're the new guy, but you're on the hot seat. Do you have a story to share?
Unfortunately, yes. And, in your career, you hope that you never put into these situations. And unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to towing the line and, also being steadfast in your beliefs and ethics. And it was pushed down to me as a controls engineer, we're the first line of defense for any regulatory reporting, data collection, data integrity, things along that line. And I was asked to disconnect a analyzer that monitored particulates that went out to the atmosphere. At that given moment, I had to make a choice. And I decided to stand my ground, put my job, my career, my family at risk of unemployment. and refused to, and made a stand that if I find it disconnected or a null value, I will report you myself. And needless to say, they took down the process to find out that the operator couldn't get a filter into the turret and decided to only put one in. And at that point, contaminated the whole backside of the turret. And yeah, it's a tough decision to make those choices, as you know, the previous conversations, and put your career and family at risk for being steadfast in your beliefs and standing up to corruption, and had to do what I had to do. You know, it's simple. We have one planet, protect it. That's all they're asking. So unfortunately, that was, you know, you pray you never have to deal with this in your career. And at some point it does rear its ugly head. And unfortunately, you get too many people that need their job and will abide by, you know, their upper management's wishes. Where, you know, unfortunate, I was in, as previous conversations, a position where I can make that stand, whether the outcome was good or bad. Well, needless to say, I am no longer employed there because I refuse to be a part of that. So I moved on to another company that abides by those rules and will put money into protecting our planet. So that's my story.
And that is something, because sometimes people don't realize that safety and environmental and quality, these things, they all go hand in hand. And when you shortcut one, it can be disastrous, the chain of reaction that happens on the other side of it. I had a story of one time I was on a prototype trial, and we had the whole cross-departmental team that was down at a prototype trial, and we were failing. And we had tried multiple designs, and each time, each design didn't follow the best practice of the company because the customer requirement didn't ask for the best practice. So everybody just wanted to kind of do this other stuff instead of what we knew was the right way to do it. Deadlines starting getting tight. We were failing for one condition. I was relatively new to the company, had never been on a trial that had failed and been delayed this many times. So the first thing I did was I tried to get clarification on what the failure was. And then I called in the posse. I literally emailed my quality manager at the time and all the other quality engineers, and I just asked them the question, what would you do if you were facing this on a prototype trial? About an hour later, every department's representative that was on the prototype trial started getting emails from all of their bosses, their managers, their directors. Hey, here's how we were supposed to take care of this. And there was a global study done on the phenomenon. And the whole reason that it happened was fixing it was relatively expensive on a piece-by-piece basis. And nobody wanted to pull the trigger on it until it got to the point where there were no other alternatives other than the best practice. And it just was an awkward situation to be in. But I had to make sure I had my facts straight, and then I had to make sure that I was consulting the experts and calling in the cavalry. And if that happens and they leave you out there dangling, then you're going to have some tough choices to make. And people on this panel have made those tough choices. So, Deb, what did I get you into? Uh, I don't know if you want to try to follow up on this, but I'm going to throw it over to you real quick.
All right, I'm catching it. So these are amazing stories, and so sorry that people have to endure, but it does speak to the human character and how we are faced with these challenges every day. I, for one, have not been faced with overt corruption. I am grateful for that. However, as a quality professional, I have been faced with difficult decisions that do have financial impact. In one case, again, we have our control plans, our FMEAs to try to manage risk, but we had some items that missed detection and actually got into the marketplace. And so when we discovered this, we obviously there is protocol to notify interested parties. But the interesting thing is everybody knew it's an important topic, but the dynamic that was challenging was the conversation about occurrence. Yes, it was a severe issue, but what's the occurrence and possibility that this might impact a human if we didn't recall it? And that became the dilemma, the conundrum, the tough choice. And while nobody forced me, nobody told me to turn the other cheek, look away, the challenge was then what was right? What was the right risk decision to make for either oneself, the people in the company, because you have to think about the business, your community, and ultimately the end user. And so in that situation, it was very, very hard. I felt pressure because if we decided to recall, there could be some financial implications and have a negative impact on the customer. But to what somebody else said was know who your allies are, know where you can get proper counsel, because at the end of the day, as a leader, we have to make a risk-based decision. And I'm grateful at the end of the day, we decided to bring the product back. And while it did cause a lot of angst, I can sleep at night. And I think everybody on my team can sleep at night knowing we did the right thing. Whereas some situations that you have shared, people chose to do the wrong thing and had negative repercussions. So I can talk more about my ideas, but I'm going to throw it back to you, Joe.
So I know we covered a lot, and we had some pretty in-depth experiences from everybody. So I'm going to take a minute and ask, does anybody have any questions for anybody else on the panel right now? Anything that you heard, or any follow-up?
So I'm taking a quick look. I can only see the Facebook feed, and I don't see any chat nor on our feed right now. So I think at this time it'd be safe to continue.
And then panelists, did you have any questions for each other on any of this so far? Or do you want to just keep going?
Well, Joe, I just want to comment. I mean, everybody's situation is unique. Like Doug shared, and Dell, my situation was unique. Whoever's going to listen, I was, when I walked out, it was basically my first retirement, and I was in a position where I could do that. I wasn't a 25-year-old engineer with, a kid on the way or something like that. That decision may be different for someone like that, and it's not right or wrong. It's just your situation dictates what action you can take. I think Doug mentioned, you can request going to another project. That's there's options. It doesn't there's no right answer. There's just what's right for your situation. I mean, it's not an A or B. There's a vast continuum of options available.
I so agree with that statement. As these young engineers, come out, they're trying to start out financially, start a family, and yeah, it's a tough decision because you can get blackballed real quick in the automotive. It is a small group. I've traveled globally, and it's, I'm GM certified, robotic PLC, the list goes on. It's hard to make that stand, but, you got to stand by your beliefs and follow them. And if you want to go down that road, that's your decision,
Right.
But at the end of the day, you have to live with the consequences.
Right.
So, I mean, make the right decision so you can sleep at night. I mean, you look outside, look at those landfills, you'll see, my presence there, because guess what? Those lead acid batteries aren't filling them up no more. They're 100% recyclable. Now, those electric cars, well, that's a whole different scenario. Got a team of PhD holders trying to figure out how to recycle that in a timely fashion. So, got one planet. Let's protect it.
Yeah, good comments, Dale.
Yeah, definitely challenging. I mean, one thing, if I think about just some ways, and maybe I'll jump right in here about helping that young buck, that person up and coming about how to deal with such challenging choices. I just know that over time I did cultivate a lot of strong allies, people that I thought I could trust. Because we as leaders or even as young engineers just don't have that network all the time or have all the answers. It's best to consult with a lot of people. At the end of the day, it is tough, but this sets your legacy. You can choose to go with the status quo and do nothing because you want to minimize risk and not make waves and perhaps negatively impact your company, or your career. But also, you have to think about what kind of legacy you're leaving, whether you're 25 years old, 35, or older. People are watching what you do. And so you can consider that as well to decide whether to make the right decision or the wrong decision, and taking the right risks and doing it in a safe way to choose not to support corruption, bad decisions. Again, at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves and also the people that are watching us and our families, because they also know our stories as well.
Deb, that's an excellent point about the people watching, because
Yeah.
it not only with corruption, but just standing up, quote unquote, standing up,
Mhm.
and taking a stand. Uh, I was very lucky to have parents who were like that, and so it wasn't a stretch. It wasn't something new to me. And at 30 some years old, I stood up and somebody was watching, and I've worked for that person 3 times now,
Beautiful.
because they recognized that and they wanted that in their organization, and they tapped me on the shoulder 3 times.
Beautiful. So you see.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to actually go back around and I'm going to ask everybody, name a situation you were in and then name what you did to try to fix that situation. And I know that it's kind of a weighty subject, but I am going to, again, I'm going to ask people to kind of keep it semi short and try not to name any names. I'm going to actually start it off. I was in a situation once where we had an excellent quality and safety rating, but as production began to ramp up, you started hearing production is king, and all hands on deck for production. And we started doing all these things to make rate. And slowly but surely, we started chipping away at things like first piece checks and changeovers. And people lost the art of being able to do the quality checks at rate. And we also lost the ability where every department was involved in first piece checks. So it slowly deteriorated into a situation where every problem was quality's problem, everything was quality's fault. And no matter how many times I went around the horn and said, are we doing first piece checks as a team, all 3 shifts? And are we following the things that we know we should be doing? Sooner or later, because we were behind schedule on production, everything was quality's fault. And I did everything I could to hold that quality team together and stand up in front of everybody and just ask the question every day, if not at least once a week, are we doing first piece checks? And there was always this silence that fell over the room.
Mm.
So I'm going to say it. It took me almost a year of fighting it to find a new job, but that's what I did. I got to the point where I said from the start, if it's just going to be everything's quality's fault, I'm not the guy for the job.
Mm.
So you do everything you can to do it, to do what's right so you can sleep at night. I know I've heard that at least once or twice. You got to do what makes you be able to sleep at night. But if you are just outnumbered, you have to start asking yourself, can you stay in the mix here, or are you better off walking away? And it's painful. Sometimes it's really hard because you're putting everything you got into getting it right, but you see it slowly deteriorating. But you still got to state the facts, state the facts, state the facts. We know what we should be doing. Are we doing it? So that's half the reason we call this speaking truth to power, I guess. Dell, do you have a situation like that?
Being as a controls engineer, you and an OEM supplier, I have to deal with you quality guys on a regular basis. I've learned to love and hate you. All right.
Hey, quality is everybody's responsibility. Remember that.
You're right. I put in the automation and love going toe to toe with you guys on quality checks and making sure the machine or the equipment is matching your end checks. And at the end of the day, as long as we both agree and we can get the product to where it is, man, I will stand behind you 100%. But I have worked with some quality people that you look at and you just shake your head and, wonder, why are you even in this if there's no love or passion? So at that point, you circumvent them and you do what you feel is the best for the situation by going around them, through them, or above them. And I don't care how I get to the end result. At the end of the day, we got to do this together as a team, whether as a controls engineer working from the outside in or as a quality person. We got to do it together to get the end user a safe product that at the end of the day won't hurt or kill them. I'm so proud of my daughter being, seeing some of these decisions made. That remember the toy company that sent out toys that had lead paint in them?
Yep.
Okay. My daughter at the age of 9 sent them back with a letter. And I was proud of her. That was her decision. Favorite toys. That she sent them back with a letter and got a very kind response and a gift card.
Beautiful.
But we are an example to our children, our colleagues, younger engineers, and people coming up in the business. So like people have said, there are people watching. So make the best decision.
Yeah.
So, that's why I looked forward to this panel because, you're all quality people. So quality, this is, what I live for is, at the end of the day, launching a new program with you guys side by side, elbow to elbow out on the floor, putting in the technology to meet your end goals and to make your job and life easier. So it's a privilege to be here to speak on with you.
Oh, we are glad to have you, but I'm going to slide it over to Doug. Doug, do you have an example that you went through and then what you did to do your best to fix it?
Yeah, I do, Joe. Thanks. I have several examples, but just a comment that I want to make prior to the example, because, over the years, I've kind of reflected on what drives somebody not to make the right decisions regarding, making the right quality decisions, integrity, and things like that. And I think that what helps me as I matured over the years is, have confidence in yourself, because it's easy for somebody else to second guess you. And I look back at great leaders like Lee Iacocca. He was second guessed. He was kicked out of Ford, but he went on to do great things with Chrysler. And we can name leader after leader that was deemed to be blackballed or a bad egg, but yet went on to do great things. So they were obviously good people with good decision-making skills that didn't jive with that organization, or they were facing a situation that they felt uncomfortable with and did the right thing anyway. And yes, there's negative consequences, but the thing to keep in mind, and I think that helps me, is just know that you're your own person. And just because somebody doesn't agree with you doesn't mean that it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You could find out that you make the other decision, are going to criticize you that way too. So just have confidence that not everybody's going to agree with you, even if you're doing the right thing. So some of the examples that I have, and these are some examples that stick out in mind. Not as major as the example that I'd given you, but I've had different jobs within my organizations. At the time, this particular example, I was a maintenance supervisor. So I was supervising skilled trades on midnight shift. We had electricians, millwrights, repairmen, pipe fitters, and when you're on midnight shift and you're on your own, you have to make a lot of decisions on your own because a lot of people are in bed. You can't consult them. And if you're calling people out of bed, they're wondering, well, why are you in this job if you can't make decisions and I have to be called out of bed, right? So I'm in that particular situation. We have a particular machine at the time that was not capable of producing parts within spec. So if I did choose to continue to run it, we would end up in the morning with a lot of scrap, or I could take it down, get it fixed. Of course, I wouldn't have production in the morning. I wouldn't have those parts because the machine wasn't running, but I'd be delivering a capable machine to the next shift. I chose to take it down, get it fixed so that we had good parts in the morning instead of a bunch of scrap. Naturally, the superintendent comes in the next day. You know, I'm a maintenance superintendent, and then we have production superintendents. Production superintendent's angry. You made the wrong decision. What's wrong with you? And you know, who in the world would take a machine down and leave us without parts? And as a young engineer or young supervisor at the time, I felt pretty horrible. Like, wow, I should have went along with just making parts at rate. This guy obviously has been around for a while, knows more than me. And, you know, you're second guessing yourself, right? But at the end of the day, I just realized that, you know, over the year, and this wasn't something that happened overnight. This is just part of maturing, right? I just learned that it's easy to question somebody the next day, right? It's always easy to criticize somebody. You're going to get that. So I guess just learn to live with it. You know, some criticisms come your way, but take it with a grain of salt because it's not always valid. And there are a lot of great leaders that got criticized and went on to do great things. So,
Doug, thank you for that. Randy, I know you've been waiting patiently. Do you have a story in mind for us, and then what you did?
Absolutely. So everybody should, I hope everybody's familiar with a torque gun when they measure angle to make sure they get the fasteners, you know, tightened to the proper torque plus angle. Well, in one job, torque angle, but lo and behold, the torque guns weren't meeting angle, so they were rejecting parts, which was the right thing to do. But the angle kept getting wider and wider and wider and wider because they didn't want to reject parts, so they kept widening the angle so that parts would be acceptable. So at the time, it was a passcode to get in to change the parameters. And I said, okay, we need to change that because, you know, somebody can give you your passcode out. So let's make it your badge. Well, it kept happening. So we ended up putting a thumbprint scanner in. There was, you know, just talked to the general manager. I said, it's not working. I'm getting low torques. I'm getting, you know, cross thread. I'm getting all this stuff. It's not measuring angle correctly. And I explained to him what was going on. Well, we spent the $5,000 to get a thumbprint scanner in, and nobody's lopping off their thumb to give somebody the opportunity to change their parameters for them. So it really cut down on the number. It basically fixed the problem immediately. The angle could not be adjusted without somebody actually putting their thumbprint on there. And we picked the right people to have the thumbprint to do it. And the problem went away.
All righty. So, Deb, you've heard all of this. You get the honor to come behind us all and give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so again, another similar story as being the head of quality. Um, Again, you sometimes find things that happen within your plant. The best control plan doesn't necessarily mitigate anything. And we realized at the end of the day, when you did a proper root cause analysis and understanding what were the conditions and the management practices that really needed to be addressed to avoid quality. Again, that's what we're trying to do as quality and operations professionals. We're trying to prevent things from happening, not cause the problem. The unfortunate thing is sometimes when we do our due diligence, get to the root cause, it can be actually costly. In this situation, we actually had to replace a lot of equipment because we could never completely mitigate the defect that was constantly popping up periodically. And sometimes you wouldn't know exactly when, despite all of the um, mitigation. Sometimes people are okay with that, but quality professionals have to have the courage to say, no, let's go a little bit deeper, a few more whys. And then we realize that we've never spent enough money to properly design the right equipment, that if you did that from the get-go, you would avoid the issue. So we did raise a lot of heck about that. We put the data out there, and that is a point. Sometimes as a young professional, you feel like you don't have a voice, but you do have power based on the data. If you can put data and make sure the data is right and you vet it with other people to make sure you've got it right, data does speak the truth. And so, yes, at the end of the day, people, the only conclusion they could make was that we needed to spend a lot of money that was not in budget. And like Joe, I pulled in the cavalry to support that decision. And I know eventually they did it, but it was not the news that they wanted to hear. I actually think that that was part of the reason why I'm no longer with the company, because I did what was right. I highlighted a very ugly issue. And sometimes we have to take those stands and feel that pressure. It's really, really, it's sometimes lonely. Sometimes you will lose sleep at night because you're making a stand for what is right. I believe they eventually did do all the right corrections, but it was after that I had left. So again, I can sleep at night. Data is your friend. It speaks the truth. You leverage it. Be ready to be uncomfortable at times, but that only builds your courage, your tenacity, and you can take those skills going forward. So that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I'm gonna kind of go a little bit, pull something ahead, just kind of on a whim, but I want to go around the horn and ask everybody if there was a somebody that wanted to reach out to you and discuss either a problem they're having or get a piece of advice. How would they get a hold of you? So let's start with you, Deb.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I am very active on LinkedIn. Look for Deborah A. Coviello or the Drop In CEO, or reach out to me at my website, dropinceo.com. Would love to have a conversation with you.
And Dell, how would they get a hold of you?
LinkedIn's probably the best place. I help a lot of colleagues, for environmental equipment, SO2 monitors, things along those lines. Best ways to help mitigate impact, technology, things along that line. So LinkedIn is the best place to get a hold of me.
Doug, where can people reach you?
Mute. Can't hear you.
Sorry. Like Dell and Deb, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So that's the best place to get a hold of me. And I receive those emails pretty quick and respond quick.
Randy, how can people get a hold of you if they need to?
Same thing. I'm on LinkedIn a couple times a day, maybe not as active, but I'm a stalker. So you can get a hold of me through LinkedIn messaging.
Well, LinkedIn seems to be the popular answer. I'm definitely on LinkedIn. Whatever platform you're watching this on, if you think somebody can use this advice, needs to hear this advice, by all means, share it, copy it, like it, copy paste it. Get a hold of us if you have any questions, or if you want to be on the next edition of Speaking Truth to Power, or if you just want to listen in live. By all means, get a hold of any one of us or all of us and say, hey, I got a couple questions, or I want to be a part of this show. What do I need to do to be on the panel? So I'm going to ask for the elevator pitch. Everybody knows what this is. You got 30 seconds, and you're trying to get across to somebody the importance to do the right thing. So we're going to start with Deb. 30 seconds. How do you convince somebody they need to do the right thing when it comes to facing corruption?
Toss away the metrics. Don't listen to the metrics. Ultimately, we are in pursuit of peace of mind. Let that be your guiding light to make the right decision. Back to you.
All right, Dell, you got 30 seconds.
People lie, data doesn't. Make the right decision. Be steadfast. Thank you.
All right, Doug, you got 30 seconds.
All right. I would say just learn to live with some discomfort and accept that. Have confidence and know most people know right from wrong, and don't cave into the pressure, and just learn that that's part of life to have a little discomfort, and in the end, it's going to work to your benefit.
All right, Randy, got 30 seconds.
I would just say that, as Deb mentioned earlier, people are watching, and I think the tide is turning where people are becoming more ethical and less corrupt. So if you take that stand, it can be a negative to some, but it can also be a positive to others, and and take the stand and hope for the best. And people are watching.
All right. So for my dollar, one of the sayings that I always reach back to is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure every time. It's almost like people don't even know that anymore. You always hear the story about the corner deli that has the great soup, and then somebody comes in, makes the soup cheaper, and then nobody wants the soup. So it's always cheaper, better, most effective to do it right the first time than it is to have to go back and constantly tweak it, fix it, change it, refund your money to the customer, all that stuff. So I want to give everybody a chance to give some closing thoughts. So we're just going to go right back around the horn. We're going to start with you, Randy. What do you want to say in closing for today's episode?
My experience is that corruption is 100% based on dollars to someone. So, you can buy it, you can sell it, you can do it's always driven by the money. So if you don't let money drive you, you're in a better situation.
Any closing thoughts?
Joe, did you say Doug?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Doug,
I'm
it's on
sorry.
you.
I would say, most people, if they're making wrong decisions, like Randy said, it's ultimately the dollars, but it drives down to pressure to perform and achieve those dollars for your company. And just know that doing the right thing is going to put your company in a better position long term. Corruption tends to have a short-term gain, but integrity and doing the right thing has a long-term gain. And that was illustrated in the example that I given before, that had our company done the right thing, or at least the company in the example did the right thing, we would not have opened up the warranty to 10-year, 100,000 miles. So those are my closing thoughts.
Dell, do you have anything to say in closing?
I think someone said, used the phrase "production is king." You hear that? Run. I've heard that all too many times, and usually when you end up going back to that customer, you have a whole brand new management team, and production's not king.
All right, so Deb, you're kind of giving a closing that's not a closing, because I'm going to kick it back to you, but what do you have for closing thoughts before I throw it back to you to officially close it out?
So, the reason why I show up here and with everybody here is I really care about the up and coming leader. And even if you're a leader of today, I just want you to struggle less. That's why I'm here. That's why we're all here today. And don't do this alone. If you have any questions, again, I'm sure you've enjoyed listening to this, but honestly, you've got to build a network, get a mentor, get a coach, reach out to us, let our experience help you. So don't do this alone. I don't want you to struggle. Think about connecting with us, getting to know a friendly voice that might be able to help you navigate some of these challenges. And with
All
that,
right.
Joe, any last closing thoughts?
So, yeah, I have a few, but the number one thing I want to say is I want to say thank you to the people that have been on these panels and considering being on these panels, because I got to that point in my career where it's like, who's going to speak truth to power? Who's just going to say what needs to be said and not be afraid to try to coach and mentor a whole nother generation of quality professionals and professionals in general about doing the right thing? Um, at the end of the day, each one of us have to be able to sleep at night. So, can you do that? Can you make that choice? Make the choice where you can sleep at night. And general rule of thumb is each one of us are going to want to do things different ways, but let's find the right way to do stuff, and then let's work together to find a better way. There's no my way or the highway stuff anymore. It's look at this, do what's right, and then work together to make it better. If we're doing that, then I think that we're all going to be in a much better place, tomorrow and 10 years from now. So, Deb, I do want to kick it back to you just in case I missed anything. And I want to say thank you for taking a chance on this concept with your show and inviting all of us on to be a part of this today.
All right. So thank you again to Joe, Randy, Dell, Doug. Thank you for experimenting, playing in my sandbox. And I just want to thank everybody who is watching this or on the replay. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Quality Roundtable, Speaking Truth to Power. I want to wish everybody out there success. I want to wish everybody here on the panel continued success, and be well. Take care.